Hi Shelley, this is the video reflection for task 9. So we have the 5 bullet points with our proficiency scales. We use a 4-point proficiency scale system, and then we divide them into 0.5 level increments to give the kids a little bit better idea of where they're at. They are level 1, not yet, level 2, developing, level 3, completely proficient, and 4, accomplished. And we do this because we do the 4-level system instead of the 5-level system, because 3 was proficiency in the 5-level system, and some kids, the ones who weren't necessarily the best students and didn't have a whole lot of confidence, would just aim for level 3 as opposed to trying to push themselves a little bit. So we use the 4-point system where there is no middle. And in order to prove proficiency, to move to the next level, they have to get a 2.5, which translates to an 85 on the 0 to 100 grade point system. We use these proficiency scales throughout the entire year so that they get used to it and they aren't confused about how they're going to be graded. Even though we use this entire year, in the middle of the fall semester, kids are still asking how they're going to get graded and what those proficiency scales mean. So we need to keep them consistent for the entire year. So chemistry is sequential, and if you don't master content early for each unit, then it's pretty much impossible for them to gain mastery at the level 3 if they don't know the information from before. And so this is in contrast to biology, where you can do certain units out of order. And now our school, they have switched the later units for the beginning units for the first part of the year. That's because the environmental and ecology portions are a little bit easier for the kids to understand. There's some vocabulary, but it's not like all the Latin words that are involved with cell and genetics and some other things. So it's just easier for them to understand, and they want the harder topics to be fresh in the kids' mind for when they take STAR. So they do those cell and genetics things a little bit later. And so, hold on just 1 second. I gotta move this up. And so when we do each proficiency scale for each unit, we have the same kind of level of DOK, except we add 4 instead of just 3. And so each one, the not yet level, is basically, it's based on what they have previously learned in other units, well, in other years before. So their life sciences and their physical sciences, we take those and we make sure that they can do those. And then if we need to, we add a few of the standards, or the portions of the standards that they would need in order to be able to go on, but they can always with teacher help if it wasn't a previous standard from previous years, grade 7 and 8. For the not yet portion, we add the standards that they're going to need to know, at least the most basic ones, but they can do them typically with teacher help. For the proficient, they need to do all of the standards that are required, and the standards that we use are our essential standards. And so what we do is our school has us write essential standards for the TEKS that we want to guarantee that all students will have mastery over, and so that they'll pass for those standards. The proficiency scales for level 3, they have to be able to master those without teacher help. The accomplished ones are where they can do more creative analysis and evaluation for all of the standards that they have to know, and we might add some that allow them to go a little bit further. But so on the test, these questions are either problems that are more difficult to solve and involve creative and more critical thinking scales, or they are where they have to create an answer and do a short constructive response that shows that they can truly analyze and evaluate the material on their own. So it might be their opinion, and that go just a little bit further so they can prove that they know all of the content backwards and forwards and can use it in novel ways. So our units, as I was speaking about the sequential progression for chemistry, there's really only one that we have switched around. It's the nuclear chemistry unit, and logically it could be placed after they learn about atomic theory, so the structure of the nucleus and then the electron shells around it. So once they learn the structure of the nucleus, they are able to go and do the nuclear chemistry unit, which is about radioactivity and how the nucleus changes based on radioactive decay. But we put it back to the end, and it's because after they're already familiar with how chemistry works and the types of things that they need to know, and then they have all of the content that they should, it's easier for them to do nuclear chemistry. We also do a project that everyone's required to do, and it is more on it's critical thinking and problem solving. So there's higher order questions where they have a court case that is actually a real court case that happened. The events happened in 1972, and the court was brought to trial in 1975. A father was accused of harming one of his sons by placing nuclear radioactive sources on him. The kid had ended up having radiation burns and had to have multiple surgeries and had to have skin grafts to cover them. He was also rendered sterile and had to take testosterone for the rest of his life. So what we have the kids do, there are three different types of radioactive decay that have very specific characteristics. For example, and they're alpha, beta, and gamma. The alpha, for example, can't penetrate through skin or paper, so skin or paper will stop it. And then beta and gamma are stronger. And so they have to figure out that it can't be alpha based on the circumstances of the case, but it could be beta or gamma. And at the end, we ask them to evaluate which sources it could be. And then they have to cross off all of the radioactive isotopes that we give them that would not be possible. And then they have to determine if the father had access to the possible radioactive isotopes. It turns out he did because of his job. He worked in oil and gas. He ended up forging a certificate because his boss was the only person that could check out radioactive sources. And so he forged that, got the radioactive sources, used that to harm the child, or at least this was what he was convicted of in court. And so the kids have to figure that out and then explain how they know that. So yeah, it happened in Austin. It was a real case back in the 70s, before people really did, I feel like had more know-how about how to commit crimes based on history. But yeah, a guy ended up skipping bail, and the FBI caught him a couple years afterwards. And he never confessed, and he never gave a motive for his crime. He and his wife divorced, and she remarried, and we're assuming it has something to do with that. Anyhow, I think that covers all of the bullet points. Let me just make sure that, yes. Oh, and it definitely, because chemistry is sequential, the proficiency scales and the levels that we do for each unit, they definitely represent a coherent curriculum for the entire school year and for the things that they need to know in chemistry. Thank you very much. Bye.